Kulturazja. Więcej niż kultura, więcej niż podróże.
Dzisiaj jestem w Sopocie i rozmawiam z Mary Lou Longworth o jej powieściach cyklu kryminałów prowansalskich, które ukazały się nakładem wydawnictwa Smak, słowa. Zapraszam. Provence as a crime scene, isn't it a little bit risky idea?
Yes, but I was very much encouraged by the fact that there hadn't been done one in X, so I was looking for ideas when I started to think of writing a book. And I love the books set in Oxford with Inspector Morris in Oxford, and I thought if they can do Oxford, why not Aix-en-Provence? It's very much the same type of town. It's small, it's beautiful, it's very historic. There are lots of tourists who visit it, and there's, for us in France, there's a famous university. And the university in Aix is very much connected to law, and it has been since the medieval ages. So I thought that's a great place for somebody involved in law to get involved in mysteries. And also it seems like a very safe city, like Oxford seems like a very safe city, but it's the hidden stories behind all the beautiful old buildings, you know, these family stories, you know, especially which come out in the first book. And some of those stories were told to me when we first moved to Aix by my French friends, stories of their ancestors, stories of their families, that were kind of kept secret, and I thought, oh, this would be a great setting for mysteries.
So the place is what inspires you, what boosts your imagination?
Yes, very much so, the place does. When we moved to Provence, we lived downtown, and I spent just almost every day walking my daughter to school, and then in France you come home for lunch, so I would pick her up for lunch and then walk her back to school, and you really discover a city and its people that way, by walking and by talking to people. So it's always been a big inspiration for me in the stories and listening to people.
We've got a couple as the main characters. Right. It's not a usual thing in crime stories, but Marine, she's not a policeman, she's not a judge, she's not a detective, but she isn't also just a lover, friend, daughter, something like that. She's an equal partner for Antoine.
Right. Yes. Again, I was getting, as much as I love Inspector Morris and Wallander, set in Sweden, I was getting a little bit tired of those policemen who are single, who go home, they're depressed, they drink too much, and I wanted my main character. I wanted Antoine to be happy. I wanted Antoine to be happy in a couple. And so I thought, you know, why not make them a couple? At first, in the first book, they're having problems. In the second book, still sort of having problems, but it gets better and better. And also there were mysteries set in the United States in the 1930s called Thin Man, and it was with Nick and Nora Charles. And they were independently wealthy somehow. You never really find out how, but they get involved in mysteries, and both of them are very equal, which is great. Very unusual too for the 1930s.
Marine is absolutely sweet and charming person, but Antoine is not very pleased.
Right.
I guess he looks down on people around.
He's a snob.
Yes, he's a snob. He's selfish.
Yeah. Yes.
Why?
Yeah, because I maybe went a little too far in the first book, but I wanted to. I wanted him to be a snob. I wanted him to be this Parisian, you know, who arrives in Aix, and so things aren't easy for him, and he's got to sort of drop. He has to become nicer, and he does, and largely thanks to her. Yes, I had some people read the first book and say, "I hate him," you know. So I probably made him, a little too mean in the first book, but he gets nicer and nicer and nicer. And it's largely because of Marine and because of working at Aix, he meets great people like Bruno, whom he works with, and so he has to drop that Parisian snob.
Speaking about Bruno, policeman who loves opera.
Yes.
It's very sophisticated.
Yes. Well, X is quite usual. In X is a very famous opera festival, and all kinds of our friends go. We have friends who sell cheese. They're cheese affineurs. And her favorite, we got to be friends with them because her favorite painter is Francesco Clemente. And here we are, I'm buying cheese, and we start talking about Francesco Clemente, this great Italian painter. And her husband says, oh, I don't believe, you two have the same favorite painter. We have another friend who's a hairdresser, and he's a competition bicyclist, and he loves opera, too. So there are sort of no rules that, oh, this is your job, so this is, you're a policeman, so you have to like this kind of music. And X is a famous opera town, so I thought, okay, there has to be somebody who loves opera. I thought it would be a little too obvious if it was Antoine, because he's already such a snob. Yeah.
What I really love in your books is overwhelming joie de vivre. Lifestyle in Aix-en-Provence seems to be like a bucolic tale.
Right.
Is it true?
Yes, it really is like that. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. There's, as you know, in France, I don't know about Poland, but there's a lot of vacation time. There are a lot of holidays. The food is fantastic. The weather is great. And it's a small enough town that you just walk across town, you cross a cafe, and you see, I'm sure maybe Sopot is like that. I don't know about Warsaw. I'm sure neighborhoods in Warsaw are like that too. You see friends in the cafe, you sit down, you visit. People are obsessed with food. That's something that they talk about a lot, especially somebody like Antoine. Already, if he belongs to the cigar club, and cigar smokers are people who love great food, who love great wine, who love great whiskeys, and cigars are another taste pleasure, another pleasure, the taste of them. So of course they're going to be obsessed with talking about food. And often we always laugh with my husband because you'll sit down and you'll be listening to people in a restaurant or in a cafe and everyone's talking about food.
You've turned from journalist to writer.
Right.
It has been a sudden, spontaneous decision or a long-lasting process? Why?
It took about a year or two to decide. It became harder and harder as a freelance journalist to think of the idea, do the research for the article, and then pitch, which is where you try to sell the idea for the article to the United States. And me living in France, it just seemed to be taking longer and longer and longer. Sometimes editors, they write back and they say no thank you, or they don't answer. They took months to answer, or sometimes they don't even answer. And so it was getting harder and harder, and I felt like I was more, living in Europe, I was more out of touch with what American readers would want. And so I thought, this is getting so hard, just spending days sometimes just for the idea. I thought maybe I'll try writing a book. I got frustrated, but then it took me. I wrote about half the book and then I put it in a drawer. Embarrassed. I think the first time you write fiction, I was embarrassed. Especially with dialogue. I think, oh, you're embarrassed. Is it too much like myself? Is it too much me? Do people really speak like this? I think the first time you do, when you go from non-fiction to fiction, it's a very big jump. And you don't want it to sound like it's an autobiography or a memoir of yourself. My life in X, or an American in X. So once I got over that and I got more and more into the characters, then it got easier. But the first book took a long time. Putting it in a drawer, bringing it out, putting it in a drawer, bringing it out.
Who was your first reader?
Oh, my husband. Each book is my
book.
Yes.
Okay. And why you've decided to write crime stories?
Again, when I decided that I wanted to write fiction, a novel, I thought that if I wrote, when I first started writing, it just sounded like my life. It was me. And then I thought, well, if I pick a genre, if I pick, for example, crime fiction, I've always loved mysteries. Not police stories, not thrillers, definitely not thrillers. Mysteries like Agatha Christie's, we call them in the United States, cozy mysteries, where there's no blood on the carpet, or very little bit. There's no violence. Or no graphic violence. So I thought if I wrote a mystery book, already I had this framework that is given to me, because somebody dies, and there is a killer, on the loose, and somebody's trying to find that killer. And I thought if I write about mystery, I've never worked with the police, I've never, worked in law, so that already was not me. I've never seen a gun. Yeah, well, hunting guns, yeah, but never a small gun.
Wow.
So yeah, it was easier somehow for me to pick mysteries to write with. And I love the puzzle. I've always loved working up the puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, you don't dismay your readers with blood, with cruelty, violence. I think your books, your crime issues are more intellectual puzzles.
Yes, yeah.
This is your idea.
Yes, even as a young girl, when I started reading books, novels on my own, that was something that really interested me. Reading Agatha Christie's was working at the puzzle. My husband and I then will, watch Inspector Morse. This was when it came out on television. It was about 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We would watch it together, and I'd say, "Oh no, he's looking for the wrong person. It's this. I've already figured it out in my head." So yeah, I like the puzzle, and it can change. I have it set in my mind in the beginning. I have these workbooks, and I kind of write up the outline. And it's fun when it can change. You get halfway through the book and you say, "Oh no, it's too easy, it's too obvious," and you change it. I couldn't write about, I couldn't do the kind of, Nesbo. No way. No, there's no Scandinavian noir. I wouldn't be capable of doing that, and I wouldn't want to. There's enough when you read the newspaper.
So you've got some work routine. I don't know. Maybe you are waiting for a perfect idea, or you work every day.
Yeah. You can't wait for the perfect idea. Yeah. Before I start, I fill up workbooks. I buy just cheap school books at the grocery store, and I fill them up. I start with the characters. And write down everything I can think of about each character. How old they are, where they went to school, what their job is, what they look like. And that helps.
Yeah, but how you create crime issues?
By doing that, I often start with characters or with place. Yeah, I can start with the building. And, it could be a favorite building, a favorite house in X, and think, okay, what happened here? Often it can be just from reading the local newspaper. We have a newspaper that people like to make fun of called La Provence, because it's all very local stories, But sometimes I'll be reading it and I'll get a little idea. Some guys who tried to put a little homemade explosive in a bank machine. And then something happens. They don't get any money and they run. But that'll lead me to some ideas. But maybe they did something else. Or maybe they'll be suspects for something they didn't, for a bigger crime that they didn't do. They were just putting this little explosive into the bank machine. So also just from listening to friends telling stories. I have some friends who are lawyers who are at my cigar club, so I'll listen to them, ask them questions. Oh yeah, what happened with that guy who escaped from the prison,
You're Canadian.
Right.
But your books are so French. How are this possible?
Well, we've been there a long time now, 21 years. We moved there in 1997. And I just dove into French life. We decided when we moved there, we're going to make it work. We'll stay longer than 2 years, because most expats leave before 2 years. They get homesick. And we won't join any expat groups. Our daughter will go to French school. We will only have French friends, and we did that. And so I had to learn very quickly. And I was so in love with the place that it just became, I can't believe that I didn't grow up there. I just feel, everything feels so normal to me, the way the French live. And it's a very European way of life. I mean, I see it when I'm traveling here too, in Warsaw too. It's a love of good living, of history, of tradition, of beautiful architecture, of saying hello to people when you walk into a shop, and goodbye, and that politeness. that European politeness. I really fell in love with. It's a very nice way to live.
So what is the American lifestyle? I have to ask.
Yeah, well, the odd thing was we were in California, which some people would say is not like it's like New York. It's not like the rest of the United States, and you do eat very well. And there's, but it's very California too. It's very fast life. It's very money oriented. It's very important what kind of big car you drive. Whereas in France it isn't. And in fact, the French have this funny thing, especially the older families. It's like the family from this book, from Chateau Bremont. The more money you have, the more you hide it.
You've been in Poland a couple of times,
yes.
Krakow, Warsaw, now Sopot.
Yes, and also I've been to Poznan and Torun.
Torun.
Yeah.
Beautiful city. So, have you noticed some things, maybe some place, which boosts your imagination to create a crime story based in Poland?
That's a good question. The obvious choice would be Sopot, because it's the most like X on France. It's a beautiful, small, peaceful town with gorgeous architecture and friendly people, and so great restaurants and things like that. But I'm more inspired by Warsaw. I don't know if I would be. It would be interesting to try to write a crime story there, but since I know nothing, I don't know enough about the history of the place, I would have a hard time, I think. But I'm very inspired by the contrasts that I see in Warsaw.
What kind?
Contrasts, like you walk down the street, there'll be a tiny little shop with an artisan making his handmade brushes and brooms. And across the street, there's an Israeli restaurant in Tel Aviv. Around the corner, fantastic contemporary art gallery. Then you walk down an alley, and there's this handmade ice cream stand. Next to that, you get tattoos. Across from that, there's an old garage that's still working, fixing cars. You walk around the corner, there's a fantastic shop selling handmade socks. I bought a whole bunch of them. So I'm very inspired by Warsaw that way. Definitely very inspired as a tourist. I don't know if I could go and write a book there, but that would be a good... I could send Marine and Antoine there.
Yeah, exactly.
On vacation.
Question.
Yeah.
They are on vacation and whoa! Yes. It's a Dutch course.
Yes. Good idea. Yeah.
Okay, they need vacation sometimes.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
What's next?
I've just handed in the 8th book just before I came to Poland.
Wow.
So that's in New York with my editor, so I have to start working on the 9th. So. The relationship, as I said, gets better and better, and don't worry, Antoine is very, very nice now.
But he's not too nice. Oh, please.
No, yeah, no, he's not grandfather nice. Let's say he's very funny.
Oh,
he's still quite a snob, but I'd say he's gotten funnier.
You speak a lot of about Agatha Christie, but please tell me, do you have any favorite crime stories author apart of her?
Yeah, I really like Donna Leon. She was another person who inspired me to write about X, because here she is writing about Venice. And again, there are similarities in the cities. So I really also like Fred Vargas, the French writer. I haven't read very many of her books, but the ones I've read, I've liked. And when I said I don't like police procedural, there is a Polish police writer. I can't remember his last name. Zygmunt. He's from Warsaw. Yes. So he was a journalist, and now he's writing crime stories. With Theodore is his judge. He's a judge.
Yes.
Or prosecutor.
Yeah.
I like his very much, and they're very different than my books. And I would say they're very masculine. Theodore is very almost sexist sometimes.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But I still love him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and they're set in Warsaw, so I love it because, as you know, I love the city.
Thank you. It's my city.
Yeah. But I must say I also read a lot of nonfiction. I love biographies, and I love memoirs, and I love books about history, and most of my favorite books are written, as my husband always jokes, written by very old English ladies.
Are you going to write some book apart of one-to-one and Marine's story?
For the moment, no.
No.
I'm still interested by them. I do have another project on the side where I think someday I would like to start writing maybe a film adaptation of one of my favorite books. And because one of my favorite things of writing these books is the dialogue. And of course a film script is dialogue.
Yeah.
So if I were ever to do something on the side, because I've stopped teaching now. Yeah. And so if I were ever to do something on the side with the books, I think it was to do an adaptation of somebody else's book that I love.
Oh, really?
And I would love to see on the screen. For example, Barbara Pym, there have never been any of her books on the screen, filmed. So I think that would be great, kind of picking apart somebody else's book for once, because you get tired of doing your own editing all the time. And picking out your favorite bits of dialogue and changing the book so that the images would work right on the screen. I think that would be my next project.
Okay, finger crossed.
Yeah.
Would you like to see your own book on screen?
I would, very much. The options, the television options have been bought.
Oh!
Yes.
Great.
Last year by a very good producer in London. Actually, two women. So I probably can't say their name yet.
Of course.
But their films I like very, very much. They do really, really great British television series, very sensitively done. And so they've written the treatment, which is the outline, and right now they're trying to sell that. So sell the script to other producers and the money people, the financiers, the people who will be giving them money to fund. So cross your fingers.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
So if it happens, it would be on British television.
I would like to see it.
Yeah.
I really like to see it. So finger crossed, wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you.